Let the good times roll on the north side of Chicago at the friendly confines as the Cubs made it 15 straight wins after sweeping their Central Division rivals, the upstart Cincinnati Reds, in four straight games. On the south side, the White Sox dropped in a series to the ugly Angels and now return home for a three-gamer against the Seattle Mariners, the team that was one win away from last year's World Series. In basketball, the Bulls introduced their new man. Can he turn this situation around on the west side? In the NBA playoffs, Detroit is up 2-love on the Cavaliers, while the Lakers and LeBron James are being sent home down 2-love to the Oklahoma City Thunder. In hockey, the second round action of the Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. And in sports media news, can a new sports radio station help change the landscape across the country? We'll get into that. And the NFL schedule has an official date. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. So Friday Funk edition of Second City Sports starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! For Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide, up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Gonzalez with the fake on the drive.
They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb Groves, middle of the field, Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears!
Welcome to the hashtag Friday Fun edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion due not to our extravaganza, we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You better hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. And make sure you get a chance to hype up the video as well if you're watching us live on Living Color on YouTube. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will provide.
Well, we've always done the best here on Second City Sports, of course. We got a busy talk of sports media news as we finally have a date for the official NFL schedule release, but we also have some games that have already been scheduled. And also a new sports radio station will be launching in LA next week. Could this change the landscape of the rest of sports radio stations across the country, including here in Chicago? We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Bulls hiring their new VP of basketball operations. Lakers are down 0-2 against the Thunder. Detroit takes a 2-0 lead over Cleveland. In the NHL, Carolina takes a 3-0 lead against Philadelphia. And so much more. We'll have the updates on both the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs. More NFL news as there are some first-round draft picks have already made their signatures, including the Bears. We'll talk about that. And so much more. But first, we'll go to the Diamond and talk some baseball as the Cubs swept the Reds, and they won in all different kinds of ways. We'll say that. Three walk-offs. They made it interesting with the bullpen, but they were able to pull it out. They have now won 10 straight, I should say, and they're now tied with three other teams. We'll talk about the three other teams after the break for the best record in Major League Baseball. And they've had comeback wins, they've had walk-off wins, they've had one-run wins, they've had extra inning wins, all that. Now, unfortunately, the pitching has still been an issue because Matthew Boyd is going to be out for about a month and a half after tearing a part of his tendon playing with his kids. I don't know. We put that into like the weird injury files that we've had our share here in Chicago with various athletes. But Sid, what do you think about the Cubs and this streak that they're in right now?
Are you referencing without referencing Carlos Booz? I think it was injuring his hand, dropping the gym bag. I'm just saying, but I'll let that go.
Among others, Brian Greasy tripping over his dog, spraining his ankle, tripping over his dog. Remember that one? Oh boy! And among other ones, I forgot.
Oh, the dog didn't eat his homework. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember there was I forgot which Cubs player that was that he tripped over. I guess he sneezed too hard, and I guess he twinged his back or something like that. So yeah, so that this one's right up there with having Matthew Boyd. But carry on, continue.
With the Cubs, as you mentioned, they won all kinds of ways this week, and they did get back in some good starting pitching. Jameson Taillon, Colin Ray, Shota Imanaga from yesterday. But to be a good team, LaKeena, you had to have your superstars lead, and the Cubs have those players to do that. But also, you have to have your supporting castmates step up into their starting role every once in a while, and you got to have good veteran leadership in that clubhouse as well. We talked about Alex Bregman. I know he hasn't really gotten it going yet, but I think it's coming, folks, with his bat very soon. But Michael Conforto got the party started on Monday with a walk-off home run, his first of the year. He had another one in this series with, I believe it was on Wednesday, his second of the year and the second of the series. Those kinds of veterans you need on the team because, they provide leadership and they provide guidance to some of the young guys that's on the team, like Preet Armstrong, other young guys, Maurice Ballesteros down the line. But you have other players that are not afraid of the moment, like PCA on Tuesday, hitting a game-tying home run Tuesday or Wednesday. I forget which day it was because there's been so many. But he tied the game with his 2-run home. Of course, Michael Busch walked it up with the bases loaded walk to win the game on Wednesday. So, as you mentioned, the Cubs have found all kinds of ways to win ball games. They have finally supported their starting pitching with the big outburst on offense. And as we said on the show, LaKeena, on Monday, you had to send the message to the upstart Cincinnati Reds by taking 3 out of 4, perhaps sweeping. Of course, no one thought the sweep was going to come, but you had to send the message to the young guys and say, hey, if you want to win the division, you got to come through us. And you send the message to the rest of the divisions as well with St. Louis, Milwaukee, and Pittsburgh, and so forth. You want to take the division up from us, you got to beat us fair and square. And the Cubs didn't have to do any trickery. You didn't have to do any sort of magic, curse, voodoo stuff. They went out and played Cubs baseball the way it's supposed to be played, and they earned it with a 4-game sweep.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we talk some Cubs baseball here in Shota. I have to say I kind of owe him an apology because I thought, I think he's done. 10 strikeouts yesterday, only 1 run, only 3 walks and an earned run. So he's been pitching lights out. Taillon had a nice start there as well. The pitching, look, they've holding that pitching together with duct tape and some sticks, and I don't know how long it's gonna last, but they're doing what they can with what they have, so that's all you can ask for there. Now Conforto, he had 3 RBIs again yesterday, and I don't know how long this is gonna last with him, so you better ride this out for as long as you can with him. I think he's got a lot to prove, so I think he's playing with a little extra motivation. So for me, I think the Cubs just gotta enjoy the ride. I don't think the division is over yet, buddy of the show, Mark Groy, because I heard him say that because he got into some trouble and he should have from saying it last season. I'm glad our other girl where he told him, no, don't you dare, don't you even say it, because look, we know how weird that division can be. Now they're playing a Rangers squad down in Arlington. It's indoors. If you haven't seen a T-Mobile Arena where they play, where the Rangers play, Globe Life Arena, I should say. Globe Life Field, I should say, where the Rangers play at. It's a very pitchers friendly ballpark, so the pitching could be the thing here for the Cubs this weekend. I mean, they got Ben Brown, who they called back up against Kumon Rocker, of course. If you guys remember, he's the pitching wonder kid from Vanderbilt. He's had his struggles in his career early on, but he, 1-3, so maybe the Cubs take advantage of him. Ever Cabrera for tomorrow against Jack Leiter, and also for the rubber match, Jacob deGrom against James and Taillon. So there's no reason why the Cubs can't win 2 out of 3 down there in Texas, but again, you never know. So you just gotta take it one series at a time and just keep playing how you're playing.
Do I think the winning streak is going to come to an end this weekend? Yes, but can the Cubs, as you said, take 2 out of 3 at least from the Texas Rangers? I believe so, because the Rangers, even though they are stacked offensively, their pitching has been suspect, to say the least. We'll get to what happened with them against the Bronx Bombers coming up on the flip side of this timeout at the bottom of the hour. But the Cubs, as we mentioned, for offense, given the patchwork, especially in that bullpen with Trent Thorne in that bullpen, the offense has carried this team. Let's give some props to, as I mentioned earlier, Pete Armstrong, Michael Bush, Miguel Amaya had a couple of big hits yesterday. Dansby Swanson is finally starting to come around, and Nico Horner's picked up where he's left off. He's the best hitter average-wise on the team. So you're getting contributions from a lot of the guys. You're definitely going to need that this weekend against the Texas Rangers. I know they've been struggling as a whole to start off the year, but their bullpen. I'll tell you right now, their bullpen is going to be tested this weekend, and they cannot pass the test. The Rangers can sneak and take the series from the team. Am I going to hype this up as the most important series of the year? No, but I think the important thing for the Cubs is can they play still continue to play Cubs baseball. You come off an emotional high with those first 3 wins as walk-off wins, but can you keep up with that same intensity as you go out on the road against a team that's below average record-wise right now? So can you take advantage of that after coming off an emotional high with that series sweep against your upstart division rival?
Yeah, I mean, look, they still got Corey Seager, still got Elvis Duran, Jake Berger. Remember, Andrew McCutcheon's over there, is down there now. So, he actually does pretty well against the Cubs. So, yeah, I think for me, it's going to be interesting to see, look, this is not the end all be all. Look, if they somehow lose this series, I'm not going to oh my God, I won't do that. But look, Texas is still a pretty decent squad, even though, despite their record. So I'm sure Craig Kells will have his guys ready and look, just got to, just keep trying to play well. Look, we know that the season ebbs and flows. Look, it could happen that they lose 4 of their next 6. Who knows? But I'm not putting it out there, folks. But look, it could happen because we know how baseball is sometimes. So yeah, I just think that just try to take it one series at a time and just try to keep doing what you're doing and play well against a very solid, not great, but still a very solid and talented Ranger squad.
We'll have more baseball talk following these messages right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. When we return, the Chicago White Sox in their road trip with a 500 record, but they stumbled over their own 2 feet in Anaheim. Can they rebound against the Seattle Mariners as they return home this weekend? And we'll get to the best and worst of Major League Baseball from this past week. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You're listening to Friday Fun on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you live this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports with the hashtag Friday Fun Edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
We're going to continue the baseball talk to wrap up hour number one, discussing the Chicago White Sox and the rest of Major League Baseball. For this half hour, if you have any questions or comments for us regarding the world of baseball, both on the north and south side, in the world of baseball beyond, you can definitely hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
White Sox lose a tough series against the Angels, losing 2 out of 3. Now, despite Murakami hitting his 14th home run in Monday's matchup, as they shut out the Angels, they're 6-0. Unfortunately, the Angels bounced back. They probably should have won the game on Tuesday, but Mike Trout and Jefferson, they had the bases loaded. Jefferson was able to get out of that jam in the ninth, so Angels were able to hang on to that one. And the more match was all Angels, I should say. Travis DeMond's 3-run home run and a strong outing for Urena helped the Angels take that series over the White Sox 8-2. So they come back to G-Rate as they face the Mariners. We'll talk about the Mariners in a second here, but couple of things here. So I know you're disappointed. I said that they would the Angels would win 2 out of 3, and unfortunately that's what ended up happening. But they probably should have won this series. They had their chances in that Tuesday game. Unfortunately, they were able to capitalize on the runners in scoring position. Falling into bad habits. So getting a day off was probably just what the doctor ordered. But I'll get to some of the other stuff about the White Sox in a second. So but first, what do you think about that the Angels series?
Shout out to Davis Martin. He pitched a great game on Monday. And as I said on this program, I said it to a couple other people over the last week or so. If Davis Martin, who was off now, he's 5-1 on the year. If he has a great month of May, you should definitely give him consideration to represent the White Sox in the All-Star game. I think Munetaka Murakami will be a starter in the All-Star game via the fan vote. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But Davis Martin, career high 10 strikeouts and 7 innings pitched. The White Sox offense actually backed them up. As you mentioned in Tuesday's loss, Edgar Carroll, who's been struggling at the plate, He had a chance to tie the game or perhaps win it, grounding out to the second baseman, and boom goes to dynamite. The Sox lose 4-3. And of course, on Wednesday, Noah Schultz. I'm not going to sit here to throw the baby out with the bath water. He's still a rookie. He's still going to learn some things, and it was just, I believe, his fourth start. So yeah, he's a rookie. He still has a lot to learn. And this was, people forget, this was his second time facing the Angels. So the Angels saw something in his pitching arsenal, and they got to him early. So despite 4 walks and 3 strikeouts for Noah Schultz and 3 2/3, so on Wednesday, the Sox lose that series finale because the Sox failed to score consistently with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, and that was the issue early on this season before they started to get into this big offensive swing, if you will. Now, unfortunately, for the White Sox, they do face the Mariners, so we'll see what happens in that series. But I want to get into something here that Chuck Garfien said when he was on ESPN Chicago. He said that the rebuild is over. Now, okay. Look, I get it. The White Sox only 2.5 back as other corners in that 2 back, I should say, in that AL Central. But to say that the rebuild is over with, you can't really say that. I mean, yes, Murakami has been hitting like crazy. The pitch has been pretty good for the most part. They've got, you got Vargas, you've got Montgomery, you've got other guys. I mean, you can't say that the rebuild is over with when you're still adding pieces. So to say that the rebuild's over with is a little bit disingenuous, in my opinion. The White Sox actually have, like I said, they've got good pieces, they got their stuff, but they're far from a finished. They're better, but they're far from a finished product.
Yeah, as bottoming out in terms of losing 100 games, is that part over? If that's what he meant, yes, that part's over. But this team has turned the corner into being competitive, and I think accountability is the buzzword throughout their whole front office, throughout their whole organization. You notice that the White Sox at least are trying to make moves, especially on the bottom third of the roster. Jordan Leisure, as we talked about, I was against him last year until the second half of the year where he pitched well out of the bullpen. He struggled to start up the year. He'll sit down earlier this week to AAA. Hopefully he can straighten out his issue. We saw what happened with Shane Smith a few weeks ago. He got sent down to AAA. So if you're not getting the job done, Chris Getz and crew will send you down to get yourself straightened out. So be on the rest of the players on the roster. Better be on the lookout for that. But I think for the Sox, the way they've been playing over the last month, I believe they're still 1 or 2 games above 500 ever since that 1-6 start, and they are playing competitive baseball. Yes, they're still far. I don't think they're far away to being a playoff team yet, but they've shown not quit. They're competitive in all these games. You're starting to see signs. We said this last year, but this year, as you mentioned, with their recent outbursts in the last few weeks offensively. Yes, you still have more guys that are going to be coming up here at some point this year with your Hagen Smiths, hopefully Tanner McDougal's, and your Brady Montgomerys, who just got promoted to AAA late last week. So you still have talent coming, but you still have to play competitive baseball. And I get the hype, the train that some Sox fans are on about them winning the division because of Tariq Skubal's injury with Detroit and Cleveland struggle, even though they're at 500 right now, in Kansas City with their struggles right now. So I get the hype. I'm not telling you to go save your playoff tickets yet. I'm not saying that yet, but enjoy what this team is doing, play a competitive baseball. I think the tide has turned. They're just a cute little story. We'll give them a pass. That was last year. That was 2 years ago. It's as the great Bill Parcells once said, take the Huggies off, treat them like grown men, and that's what we should be doing from now on. The organization is doing that, so should you as White Sox fans.
Sean Burke against Emerson Hancock. That'll be tonight's matchup. That should be an interesting matchup there. Anthony Kay, he'll be up against Luis Castillo. He's been struggling this year, so the White Sox batters could take advantage of that. Also, Davis Martin, we'll see if he can keep it going there against Logan Gilbert. He's been up and down too. So again, I think the Mariners are also the division. Well, we'll get to the Mariners in a second here, but the Mariners for me is an interesting story here because they're right there to think of it, the AL West. They won 2 out of 3 against the Braves. So that's what's over a bit of kind of a mini upset. So they're coming in a little bit of an overroll right now. And I think the White Sox could definitely hold their own against the Mariners. So we'll see. But yeah. But I agree. I think, look, have they made strides? Yes. Are they no longer that dormant team that that's being made fun of by people all around baseball? Yes. But to say that they're going to be a playoff team and the rebuild's over with, you can't really say that because we know how the season ebbs and flows. So if I were look, I know Chuck Garfine's excited, but I would kind of like take a kibosh on that and just say, look, keep your expectations low and just look, get back to me in about a month and I'll tell you if they're a playoff team or not.
Well, as we said on our show on Monday, we'll say it again here. The toughest part of their schedule begins right now with this long homestand. You have 3 against your Mariners this weekend. Of course, you have, I believe, 3 games against Kansas City next week. And then, of course, the Cubs will come to town 1 week from today for a big 3 game. And, of course, at the end, and then you go back on the road again to, I believe, Seattle and San Francisco. And, of course, you end the month here at home with a week-long homestand, starting on Memorial Day against the Twins and wrapping up against the Tigers. So we're going to find out a whole lot more about this team before the month is out. So I'm like you, let's enjoy the White. Their real test starts tonight against Seattle. As I mentioned at the top, they were 1 game away from reaching the World Series. So even though they're struggling to start the year, they can still beat you in many different ways. So the White Sox got to come ready to play. And you mentioned with the pitching matchups, if the White Sox, if they all will serve them, they could possibly win 2 out of 3. Now, can they be swept this weekend? Sure, they can, but I don't think so. They're back at home. They should, even though they've done well on the road this year, despite that Angel series, they're starting to cook a little bit at home, and it's going to be great weather this weekend. So I expect the Sox. I'm going to put them on the table to take 2 out of 3. If the pitching matchups are in your favor, especially for tonight with Sean Barkley, he's been pitching well in his last 3 starts. And of course, you got Davis Martin, who's 5-1, who goes on Sunday. So the White Sox should take 2 out of 3. I'm putting those expectations on them. Let's see what happens.
All right. You're listening to SecondCity Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Talk about the rest of baseball. Now, speaking of Tariq Skubal, they did find only a small loose body in his elbow, and it looks like he can only be gone for 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know what that means either, but they're talking about like up to, I know John Hammond said up to maybe 2 months, but it could be 4 to 6 weeks on the tail end. So he could be back before the All-Star break. They've lost 3 in a row. They got swept by the Red Sox this week, so they definitely need that. Cleveland, as for Cleveland, they had a better week this week, splitting their series with Kansas City, winning the last 2, including the one yesterday. That kind of was a little bit strange, but they got the split regardless. And Minnesota, I know they didn't have a good week this week. They're kind of falling off a bit. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. And like I said, the AL Central, I think, just shows that it's just not very good this year, at least so far.
Going back to that Detroit-Boston series, LaKeena, I believe it was on Monday. Did you see Framber Valdez, the former Houston Astros pitcher? Of course, he was signed in the offseason by the Tigers. Now he's going to be the front man of that starting rotation with Skubal's injury. He was playing beanball war, beating Trevor Story of the Boston Red Sox. Of course, early in the game, Valdez gave up a couple of home runs. Of course, he was frustrated. He said he had enough beating Trevor Story. Everybody got out of the dugout yelling and saying obscenities and all that stuff. AJ Hinch, that cheater, got in the middle of it as well, the manager of the Detroit Tigers. Commissioner Rob Manfred, outside the labor dispute, said enough is enough. AJ Hinch, you're suspended. Framber Valdez, you're suspended for 6 games, which means he's going to miss 1 start. Enough is enough of this foolishness. You're the instigated all this. You're going to pay the price.
Yeah, I think he got that reduced to 5, I think. So he'll still miss a start regardless. But yeah, you can tell that the wheels are starting to fall off a little bit in Detroit with all the injuries and stuff too. Now Skubal's going to be out for at the very minimum a month, up to 2 months. So yeah, you got to think that the frustration is starting to show there for them. And look, it's unfortunate, but look, they went through this. Look, maybe this is the opposite of what happened last year. They got to big lead, and then of course they lost that lead to the Guardians late. So maybe the opposite will happen this year. Who knows? We've seen weird things happen in baseball. So yeah, that was just a weird occurrence that happened on Monday. But look, it's baseball. We get these things happen. So we'll see how Detroit does now with Skubal being out. Now, I'd said earlier that the Cubs are tied with 3 other teams for the best record. Well, those 2 other teams are the Yankees. They won 2 out of 3 against the Rangers. And probably one of the highest seasons in baseball after the Cubs, the Rays. They've won 7 in a row. They started off, capping off that 7-game win streak by taking their first game at Fenway Park. And look, the Rays are one of those teams that they got a lot of young guys there. Of course, you got Ben Williamson, Ryan Velalde, and among others. So, and Jonathan Aranda, of course, hit that walk off that gave him that win against the Giants to complete that sweep late last weekend. But yeah, I think the Rays are definitely one of those teams to watch. Now, can they keep up with the Yankees? We'll see. But like I said, get back to me at the end of the month.
Also, too, don't forget about Yonder Diaz, who collected his 1,000th career hit last night in that series opener against Boston on Thursday last night. And, of course, you got Shane McClanahan, who's been injured the last couple of years. He's back in their starting rotation, is trying to find his footing right now. So, always been a Kevin Cash fan on this show. Their manager over the last few years, ever since COVID. So, give them credit. They don't have a big budget like the Yankees or some of the big market teams. Yes, White Sox, I'm including you too. But and the Cubs and the Dodgers and whatnot, but they still produce young talent. They play the game right. They play fundamentally sound. You're going to get good starting pitch. You're going to get hit at the same time. So that's what Tampa Bay's doing right now. Can they keep it up? We shall see. Because we said at the beginning of the year, these AL East teams they're going to be up on each other. There's another team that we're going to talk about in a minute. They got their footing back earlier this week in the AL East. So. Tampa Bay is getting off to a nice start. They're taking advantage of their schedule. So we'll see what happens, as you said, as Everson floats to a long 7-month season.
Baltimore, they won 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, and they're starting to get it going as well. So Baltimore. Look, I mean, we talked about Baltimore early on, and I think they could be one of those teams where I don't know if they'll look. Pete Alonso starting to find his rhythm. He had that 3-run home run that helped cap off that series when they lost the rubber match on yesterday. But look, it seems like he's starting to find his footing. We know Ali Roswell. We know what he can do and such. So I think Baltimore is starting to find their groove. I feel like.
Yeah, the problem is, and you saw this last year as well, can they find any consistent starting pitching? They could do that. They definitely could get back in this race.
Going into the AL West, the A's, they lose 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia. We'll talk about Philadelphia in a minute here. Seattle, like I said, they didn't, they had a pretty good week. The Rangers, they didn't have a good one. They lost to the Yankees. That AL West is Houston. Look, Carlos Correa is out for the year, so that's not good. That's a big loss for Houston. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers, and the AL West is we keep talking about the AL Central. I think the AL West is sort of even weirder than the Central. It feels like.
Yeah, they're saying right now, I don't have a cup, but I'll hold my old phone. Hold my beer. That's what the AL West division is saying. Hold my beer. I think the good news for the Oakland Athletics, as we call them on this show, that everybody else struggling in their division earlier this week as well. I know they had, Oakland Athletics had an outburst yesterday to prevent them from getting swept, but they were competitive in all 3 of those games against Philadelphia. I know Philadelphia's trying to get back to 500, but Oakland has some nice young players. Todd Soderstrom. You have Nick Kurtz, who won AL Rookie of the Year last year. He had 4 home runs in 1 game against Houston last year. And he has some nice starting pitch in there as well. Of course, you have young talented players like Lawrence Butler, who's been there for a while. He's been making a difference in that lineup. So, and you have Mark Kotze as their manager. So, Oakland, as I still call him on this show, they have some nice young talent, but can they keep it up? But we'll see. But, everybody else in the division is struggling right now. And as we talked about going back to the Cubs for a second, if the Cubs can play even kill coming off their emotional high of sweeping that series against Cincinnati, they can just stay focused. I think they can beat this Texas team. And look at Texas. I know you said they lost to the Yankees earlier this week. They have offense. I talk about Texas, but their inconsistencies in their bullpen, especially in their starting pitching, has reaped its ugly head so far this year. So let's see if Texas can turn it around. And on the flip side for the Cubs, let's see if they can take advantage of that. But Houston, I don't know if it's in the cards for them this year to get to the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going through a rebuild, but they may need to tear down at some point. You mentioned with the Correa injury. I know they have some young guys like Cam Smith that are in the rotation, Arrighetti as well in their starting rotation. So, Houston, they're kind of going through it without admitting out loud they're going through it. But, all the other teams, with this exception of Oakland, they have expectations. Seattle in ugly log jam of mediocrity right now.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be very interested to see what happens in that division. Speaking of, well, the other team that I said had that same record as the Cubs, the Rays, and the Yankees. Of course, the Braves, they did lose 2 out of 3 to the Mariners in Seattle, so they're still out west. So we'll talk about the schedule in a second, but yeah, Matt Olson is in the top 5. He leads the league in doubles and is in the top 5 in both RBIs as well as home runs, and he actually joins a pretty good company. He joins Ted Williams. At one point he was leading all 3 of those categories earlier this week, but he was the first player to do that outright. You got to go way back to 1949 and Ted Williams. But Atlanta right now, I know, look, they lost a tough series in Seattle, but I think they're still a class in that division right now. The Nationals, they won 2 out of 3 against Minnesota. Philadelphia, they're starting to kind of get back into it, back into their groove. They beat the A's 2 out of 3. So they get the Rockies this week. So this is kind of like their chance to try to, get back into it here. Schwarber, I believe, had another home run this week. And so has Bryce Harper still trying to get it going as well. I know Christopher Sanchez pitched a gym earlier this week, with striking out 10. So yeah, I think, look, like I said, Philadelphia, the division might be out of the cards for them, but they've looked really good the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of the year, I know Zach Wheeler's back in their rotation now, a starting rotation for the Phillies. But can the Phillies get back to 500? Sure, they can, and I believe they will, because there's too much talent on their team not to do so. Hopefully, they can't suffer any more injuries. And their left-handed starter, Christopher Sanchez, he had a great performance the other night in that series opener against Oakland. And so you need guys like him to step up to carry that starting rotation since Wheeler's back now. But going back to the Atlanta Braves, yes, it's not the end of the world, but losing 2 out of 3 to Seattle. But remember, they're playing without Ronald Acuna Jr. He's out with that hamstring. I think he should be back around this time next week. So hopefully, let's say Atlanta's lineup will get stronger with his possible return. And with the Mets, I know they lost the series finale yesterday in the makeup game against Colorado. As I said before, if they don't have a winning record on this West Coast road trip by the time they come home next week, Carlos Mendoza may see a pink slip and link card. But they're starting to play better. They took 2 out of 3 against the Angels. They took 2 out of 3 against Colorado, which should have been a sweep, but they have a chance to rebound starting tonight with the weekend series against Arizona.
And they go into the NL Central. The Cardinals, I know they I think one of their games against the Brewers got rained out, so they got to make up that game. They did split that series. They did win in San Diego, the opener yesterday. So yeah, I gotta think that the Cardinals, we thought that's gonna be a rebuild, but now they're kind of like right there in the thick of it for right now. The Pirates, they won 2 out of 3 out. It's just outside Phoenix against the D-backs. Milwaukee, so we talked about Milwaukee, with that series against the Brewers, but against the Cardinals, I should say. But look, I think that this is sort of this is a good test of the Cubs. I mean, just keep the Cubs, to kind of make sure they don't get too far out the weeds, and just make sure that, look, these teams are still going to be breathing down your necks for a little bit. So yeah, just if you're the Cubs, you just want to try to get as many wins as you can, win as many series as you can, to try to keep everybody at that division at bay.
Yeah, we'll see how Cincinnati bounces back this weekend after being swept here in Chicago by the Cubs. Yeah, man, this is where the a veteran manager comes into play, like Terry Francona. Let's see how his guys respond. Pittsburgh, you mentioned they're 4 games over the 500 mark now with a big series win at Arizona. Paul Skeens pitched well the other day, and of course Milwaukee. I know people want to leave them for that, but I still have that sneaky feeling that they're gonna make a run. Now, can they make a run like they did last year? Sure, they can. But Pat Murphy, their manager, he still has his guys motivated. And Jacob Mizorowski, he's going to start this weekend. I believe he starts tonight as they open up the series 90 minutes north of us against the New York Yankees. So he's still in his second year. He's their flamethrower. So I will not count Milwaukee out just yet. Like you said, going back to the Cubs, just continue to play slightly above 500 baseball and continue to send messages to the rest of the division. Say, hey, if you want to win the division, you got to come through us. You got to play our style of baseball.
Meanwhile, in the National League West, like I said, the Dodgers, they went 2 out of 3 in Houston. It looks like Mookie Betts could be on his way back. I know he has a rehab start tonight. But I know Glasnow got pulled from his start due to back spasms, so he might be on the IL. So, but unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, for the Dodgers, everyone else in that division hasn't really been playing very well. The Padres, who you thought that maybe they could try to pass them, but they did win 2 out of 3 against San Fran, but they did lose. Of course, they lost that opener against the Cardinals. So maybe it's not a bad thing that the Dodgers are pulling away from the division it was mostly because of injuries right now, and I think this keeps them on their toes at the very least.
Yeah, we said this about the Dodgers last year, going through injuries, going through last year. It's all going to be about their depth being tested. We're starting to see that again this year. But like you said, the good news for them is San Diego hasn't pulled away. We saw them lose 2 out of 3 against the White Sox last weekend. They struggled, even though they won 2 out of 3 at San Francisco. They struggled a bit there. And, of course, they lost their opener in their 4-game series last night at home against the St. Louis Cardinals, who's been another surprise team in MLB this year. So San Diego so far hasn't had that real long good stretch yet. Hopefully it comes soon while the Dodgers are going through their issues. But if they don't, and they start losing and the Dodgers start to get together, it could be a long second place finish, and you may be looking at out of a wild card spot, but we're still a way away from that.
Yeah, like I said, this is May's usually when the time when we really start to see what some of these teams are made of. So we'll see what happens with that. Going to the schedule for this weekend: Houston and Cincinnati, Colorado and Philadelphia, the A's and Baltimore, the Angels and Toronto, Tampa Bay and Boston. They continue this series at Fenway Park. The Nats against the Marlins, Minnesota and the Guardians. That the first game of that series will be on Apple TV. And staying in the AL Central, you got Detroit and Kansas City.
Finishing out the rest of your weekend schedule for MLB, the Yankees, as I mentioned earlier, they'll travel to Milwaukee to take on the Brewers. Your pitching matchup for tonight: Max Fried versus Jacob Mizorowski. The Mariners will face the White Sox. The Cubs will take on the Texas Rangers. The New York Mets will finish up their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the Arizona Diamondbacks. St. Louis and San Diego will get it on and finish up their 4-gamer on the weekend series. Atlanta and the Los Angeles Dodgers will do battle tonight from La La Land. Speaking of that St. Louis San Diego contest, the second game of that series tonight, it could be seen on Apple TV at 8:45. And Pittsburgh will travel to the Bay to face the San Francisco Giants as they continue their West Coast road trip.
Your nationally televised games this weekend. Tomorrow, you got Houston, Cincinnati. That'll be the Saturday game of the week on FS1. Your Fox regional coverage, the Mets and the D-backs. And also the St. Louis and the Padres. I'm sure that's probably going to be that folks here in Chicago are probably going to watch. They're going to get to watch. Your Sunday Peacock games, you get 2 this week. You have 1 early in the morning. You got Washington and the Marlins as they finish up that series. And your Peacock, the other Peacock game for prime time, you got Detroit and Kansas City. And that's your schedule for this week in MLB. This weekend in MLB.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena here with you. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 just around the corner. We gotta discuss Bryson Graham's comments to the Chicago media as he was introduced as the Bulls' new executive vice president of basketball operations. We'll dive into the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs as we do that hockey, and we'll discuss what the Los Angeles area will get a third sports radio station. We'll get into what does that mean for that market, and potentially what does that mean for big cities across the country, and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Every body in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, discussing the Chicago Bulls' new frontman and the NBA playoffs for this half hour. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects in the world of basketball, you can definitely hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
All right. Now, this actually happened like not too long after we went off the air, but a couple hours later. Bryson Graham is one of those front office guys. He's young. He's only 39. He's known for his scouting. He worked in Atlanta for, he's been 15 years with the Pelicans before joining Atlanta last season. So if you read his Michael Reinsdorf's interview with John Greenberg of The Athletic, he said that it only took him, I think, 2 seconds for like 2 seconds before he realized that that's the guy that they want. So going to be very interesting, though, to see. Now, to his credit, though, to Michael Reinsdorf's credit, he did apologize to Bulls fans for being, for them not being very good the last few years. And I'll give Bryson Graham credit. He actually was very forthcoming and very open and said, look, it's going to take a couple of years for the Bulls to get on track and get back on track. So going to be very interested to see what he does with this. Now, the NBA lottery, we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but it is going to be Sunday afternoon on ABC. We'll get more into that in a second here. But Sid, what do you think? He seems very smart. He seems very knowledgeable. He knows what it's going to take to win here in Chicago. Will people give him the time to do that? It's like the Risers are going to give him all the autonomy, and it's going to be everything, his own moves. What do you think?
Congratulations to Mr. Graham for welcome to Chicago. If he or anybody in the Bulls organizations listening to this, but I have just a couple of observations that I pointed out from that press conference that I watched. Shout out to Drew Stevens from It's the Bigs Media. He's the Bulls guy. Hopefully, we get him on this program down the road. He did ask the question to Bryson about what did Michael Reinsdorf say to tell you to come to Chicago? Basically, he said nothing. Of course, Michael Reinsdorf took the mic and said, we talked about everything about the giving him the resources and giving him the people to succeed and things along that line. From well prepared and well detail oriented as he could about the situation, about why did he take the job. And he said that this, without saying the word rebuild, that is going to take some time. He says he's not going to add any pieces to win the championship next year, which tells you that the Bulls are rebuilding. We've known that for the last couple of years that this team has needed a reset. Now, all Bulls fans wanted other people to say in that side of the organization. He said it's going to take some time, but it's going to be interesting to see how he reshapes this roster, because I know you talk about setting the culture of being competitive and ultimately leading to multiple championships here. But what I want to see is what the Bulls are. We'll have time to talk about this in the next coming weeks leading up to the NBA draft in June. But what is his prototypical player going to look like as he resets this whole roster? And what he said was he expects a lot from the players that are on the team. And from what I've heard and saw in that press room the other day, Matas Buzelis was there, and a couple other players were there, there too. Basically, what Bryson Graham says that your job is not safe, and I love it. And the same thing last year, you saw how the Bears season turned out. I'm not saying that the Bulls are going to make it to the playoffs next year, no, but just a couple of things. What is his prototypical player is going to look like with the 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, and who's the head coach going to be? Because he sounds like he has a vision. He's very prepared to get started. But what's his prototypical player going to be like, and who's going to next head coach going to be?
And remember, GM too. He's going to have some control over that as well. So, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. Like I said, we probably won't hear anything about a new GM or even a new coach, within the next month or so. And especially with the NBA draft lottery being Sunday at 2:00, it'll be on ABC. And 3-time, basketball Hall of Famer and 3-time NBA champ Tony Kukoc will be the Bulls rep for that. So hopefully he can bring a little bit of luck, and maybe the Bulls can get into that top 5 pick to try to be kind of like right there, to think of it and to kind of be the new face of the franchise. So very smart, really knowledgeable guy, very easygoing, takes accountability, very open to the public, very honest. And I think it's kind of refreshing, considering that AK, no shade, but he was the opposite. So I think having that, having a guy that's complete 180 of who AK was, it might be kind of very refreshing. Plus, he's a brother, so nothing wrong with having brothers in those types of positions. they can't go wrong there. So yeah, hopefully Bulls fans especially will give him the time that he needs to go. Cause he said himself, it's gonna take a couple of years. He didn't sugarcoat it. Look, it's gonna take a couple of years for the Bulls to kind of be right there in the thick of it. So we'll see. But I'm cautiously optimistic with this one.
Yeah, same here. I don't need him to come on every radio station in town or every single month, but give the give the fans the state of the franchise address like once, I'm saying once every few weeks, or like once a quarter, like when we were in school. You get your report card every 10, 12 weeks. Give the fans an update of how the process is going. Once the season starts, and hopefully, like you said, unlike the last regime in the previous regime of Garth Foreman lying to David Kaplan and others talking about, I was available to come on. You didn't want to be honest. You don't have to tell the fans everything, but be transparent like he was the other day, and give us the state of the team, how's the process going, and you can get the fans on your side. Because if you get the fans on your side and the team starts to turn around, it'll go more in your favor.
Yep. And like I said, maybe we'll see some of that. And of course, like I said, the NBA draft lottery coverage will be at 2:00 on ABC. Right, I believe, right before Knicks and Philadelphia. Right before that game. But yeah, let's go into the NBA playoffs. The second seed sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Going into last night's games. OKC pulled away from the Lakers 125-107. Chet Holmgren had 22 points. LeBron had 25, but unfortunately, and also 33, I should say. Austin Reeves had a playoff high 31, but it wasn't enough. Roger Moore had 16 points, but it wasn't enough for the Lakers. 22 points each from SGA and Chet Holmgren. SGA was in foul trouble. 20 points for Asia Mitchell. 18 points for Jared McCann off the bench. Look, I know a lot of Lakers fans, I know they were complaining about the refs. And yeah, there were some calls that were very questionable. All right, I'll give you all that. But somebody else has to step up. How about LeBron and Reeves? Look, DeAndre Ayton, only 3 points. Come on, dude. Marcus Smart, okay, you had 14. Okay, got to do it more consistently. Jake LaRavia, no points, 10 minutes. Jackson Hayes, I know you got a little bit banged up, but you could do a little bit more. Kennard, only 10 points. You can do a little bit more. So I would say, I don't know how you feel about this, but I say both things can be true.
Yes, with that weird huddle led by LeBron James huddling the rest after the game, I found that to be weird, but I understood why he did it. I didn't say I agree with it, but I understood why he did it. But the Lakers actually shot the ball well overall, 50% overall, 38% for three. But here's the two telling statistics as why they lost last night outside of the lack of role players. Let's go to the turnover department. OKC, 14 turnovers. The Lakers, 21. Block shots. I couldn't believe when I read the statistics this morning. OKC, 5 block shots. The Lakers, 0. That should tell you something right there. And that's the other two reasons why the Lakers lost the game last night. But you mentioned about Oklahoma City. Their real ran oil machine. SGA did not have his greatest game statistically, but you mentioned Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren both stepped up in the front court, basically to the Lakers front court, just shoved them aside. And of course, you have Davion Mitchell and Cason Wallace and some of the other role players step up for OKC last night. OKC is playing very well right now. They're undefeated in the playoffs. They swept Phoenix, and they're up 2 games to none in this series. But I think it's going to be a different story going back to Los Angeles this weekend. LeBron James is going to be motivated. You mentioned about DeAndre Ayton. He must play better. He hasn't had that bad of a playoff run so far this year. But, last night was not did not help his cause. But the role players, usually they play better at home. They're going to get a big crowds out there in La La Land starting tomorrow night. If the Lakers don't win Game 3, this series is over. But I think the Lakers will show up and show out and give a better effort tomorrow.
I agree. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. If they're a totally different team at home, so we'll see. We can see that for that team tomorrow night over at over in LA. Now, the first game for that doubleheader on Prime, Detroit came back to beat Cleveland 107-97. Kate Cunningham, 25 points and 10 assists. 21 points for Tobias Harris, 17 points for Duncan Robinson, including a couple big threes. I think there was one three that he shot for, I think, from like East Lansing or something like that. I don't know where the hell he was. Like I know. Like if you heard Brett Berry and Michael Grady on the call, they almost went nuts when Robinson hit that deep. That was Steph range 3, Steph Curry range 3. If you guys know what I'm talking about. On the flip side, though, for Cleveland, 31 points, 31 points, I should say, for Donovan Mitchell, 22 for Jared Allen, 10 points for James Harden. So there's the playoff Harden that we know and love, unfortunately, for Cleveland. Detroit's now up 2-0.
Yeah, I watched this game in its entirety actually this morning when I got up, and a couple of things that stood out to me. You mentioned one, it was about James Harden. Asur Thompson, we put him on notice on our last couple of shows. He was everywhere, as Steve Nash would say. He was everywhere last night, both offensively and defensively. I believe him and Harden got into a little bit of a shoving match and a verbal match early in the first quarter, and I think that rattled Harden as the game went along. And number two, Dennis Jenkins. I'm not gonna say he's the last guy off the bench, but he wears jersey number 24 for Detroit. He came up with 10 big points last night, including a couple of Showtime dunks, and he had 14 points, last night, including a couple of Showtime dunks. And as we talked about in that last series, as the Pistons survived it against Orlando, their role players had to step up, and stepped up. The Detroit's role players did last night. And on the flip side for Cleveland, as we said about DeAndre Ayton in the previous game, Evan Mobley's 36 minutes, 9 points, 4 assists, only 1 rebound. How the hell are you 16? You grab 1 rebound in 36 minutes. Make that make sense. And as I told you before the series began on our last show on Monday, Evan Mobley is going to determine whether Cleveland wins this series or not. And he has not had a good series thus far through these first 2 games. How the hell you have 1 rebound in 36 minutes?
That's just brutal for that one. And they're going to need him and Harden to step up if Cleveland wants to get back into this series, because they play tomorrow. No, they don't play till Sunday. No, they don't play. Yeah, no, they'll play on Monday, so they get to. They'll play they play tomorrow. So if they don't get it going here, Cleveland doesn't win at home. Yeah, this could be a short series for them. So those guys are going to have to step up for Cleveland. They want to get back in the series against Detroit. Now, going to the other 2 conference semifinal games, San Antonio just pounded Minnesota 133-95. I turned this game off at halftime, honestly, because I knew that it was all San Antonio there. Victor Wembanyama, he had 19 points and 10 rebounds. He has 30 blocks already. 6 career playoff games, only NBA player to reach such milestone. In fewer postseason games, his blocks were officially counted as that back in 1974. The late great Dikembe Mutombo, who did in 5 games, including when Denver upset the old Seattle Supersonics. They actually the anniversary back in '94. So they just celebrated that anniversary a couple of days ago. But yeah, San Antonio, all 5 stars were in double figures for San Antonio. The 3-point range was really the key. They were 41% from 3. As for Minnesota, 12 points, only 12 points each from Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Terrence Shannon Jr. I know Ant, there's a pain management for him, so he played, but he only had 12 points. So but look, Minnesota did what they needed to do. They won that first game earlier this week. So look, you're back at your home courts. You know that the Tigers are going to be rocking. So try to win one of these next 2 games, and then they'll maybe force it to a best of 3.
Yeah, Minnesota couldn't shoot the ball well in game 2, unlike in game 1 on Monday, especially in that fourth quarter when Ant-Man took over. The role players for the Spurs stepped up on Wednesday. That was the big story here. Minnesota, they came into San Antonio. They did what they had to do to steal 1 game. As I mentioned, Anthony Edwards played hero ball in the last seconds of that game 1. San Antonio played with a sense of urgency, like they needed to win game 2. In the game 2, they took it and snatched it away from Minnesota. As we said before, if Minnesota could get a win in the series, they can 2 wins in the series rather, they can make San Antonio sweat. I still believe the Spurs will win this series, but you mentioned with the T-Wolves going back home, they played better at home than they do on the road. Although they didn't do too shabby in their last series against Denver, but we don't know that Ant-Man plays better at home. Rudy Gobert, he was eaten alive in the last game. I think he'll come back and have a bounce back game. And then if you're the Spurs, continue to shoot the ball well, especially in a hostile environment. If they can do that and get one win, this series will actually go to 6. But I think that we will see a split at the Target Center this weekend because the Spurs are too good of a team, um, too good of a team to get beat both times on the road. Could it happen? Sure, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see a split here. We'll be talking about a 2-2 series next week.
Going into the MSG, the Knicks beat the Sixers 108-102 in their game 2 of their conference semifinals. Jalen Brunson had 26. OG Anunoby had 24. He avoided some serious injuries. So he injured his ankle. There was some concern that it would be curtain sore, but it looks like he won't miss any time. It's going to be more of a pain tolerance thing. Cat had 20 points on the flip side for Philadelphia. No Embiid because he's nursing ankle and hip soreness. 26 points for Tyrese Maxey, 19 for Kelly Oubre Jr., also for PG as well. But yeah, I mean, Philadelphia, look, it's got to be a sense of urgency here because if they don't win tonight, then it's going to be all she wrote in this series. So the supporting players, of course, you hope Embiid plays, but the supporting players have to step up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, the Philadelphia Sixers bench gave them 0 in terms of effort on Tuesday, even though as a team they did play better without Embiid. But you mentioned on the flip side for the New York Knicks, they're getting all the hustle points right now, the loose balls, the rebounding. Even though they didn't shoot the ball well from 3-point range the other night, they still, like you mentioned, getting contributions from Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. But it's those role players like Josh Hart we talk about all the time, OG Anunoby, and some of the other role players as well. For the New York Knicks, continue to move the ball around offensively, still continue to play tough, gritty nose defense, and we'll see if Embiid plays tonight. If he does, I think it's going to be trouble for the Knicks. As we said before the series started, it's going to be a great matchup between Karl-Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid. If Embiid can get going tonight, which I think he can, if he plays tonight in front of their home crowd, I think the Philadelphia will win it going away. Now, as you mentioned, the Knicks have to be careful with Jalen Brunson here. Yes, it's playoff time, but you don't if you don't have to play him too many minutes, don't have to. But this is so we'll see how the Knicks play this. But if Joel Embiid plays tonight, I expect Philadelphia to come out big with this win, and we'll see what happens in Game 4 on Sunday afternoon.
Going to be very interesting, though, with those games are coming up in Philadelphia. Now, speaking of Game 3 of that series between the Knicks and Philadelphia, both these games tonight will be on Prime Video. Just a heads up here, folks. The first game will be that Knicks at Philadelphia series. We'll see if Philadelphia can cut into that lead. And also Game 3 at the Target Center between Minnesota as they host the Spurs. We'll see if Minnesota can a pivotal Game 3. We'll see if Minnesota can win that series tonight. We know they're totally they'll feed off that crowd. So both these games are going to be very interesting.
All right. Yeah, I think so too. If I had to pick, I picked Philadelphia and Minnesota to win their games tonight because both their teams will be at home hosting Game 3s. For tomorrow, Saturday, these are Game 3s from the other two series. The Pistons and Cavaliers, this series will shift now to Cleveland. Game 3 will be on NBC and Peacock tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, followed by the Thunder and the Lakers in that Western Conference second round series. That's tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. on ABC in Game 3 of that series as it shifts over to Los Angeles. And you'll get the Inside the NBA crew both before and after the game tomorrow with the Lakers game on ABC. And that's your schedule for Saturday.
All right, Sunday after the NBA draft lottery, it'll be the Knicks and the Sixers. Will this be the Knicks trying to clinch a sweep, or will it be Philadelphia trying to tie the series? We'll see what happens at 2:30 on ABC. Also, same with San Antonio here. We'll see if whoever's going to get the tie, who's going to go up 3-1, or will they be at 2-2? We'll see. You catch Game 4 of San Antonio and Minnesota at 6:30 on NBC and also streaming on Peacock. And that's just scheduled for this weekend, I should say, in the NBA playoffs.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you. As we have a couple minutes left before we break for the bottom of the hour, I still want to stick with basketball, LaKeena. We'll tie into the Bulls here. Obviously, we mentioned with the draft lottery airing before the Philadelphia Game 4 with the Knicks. The draft lottery odds, Washington's up there, New Orleans, Utah, of course, the Brooklyn Nets, of course, the Chicago Bulls are in the mix as well. I think the only thing I could guarantee here is the Bulls will not get the number one pick. I'll be surprised if they do. But what is your prediction? Who's going to get the number one pick? Will it go to Brooklyn? Will it go to New Orleans? What say you?
Yeah, I think Indiana has like the second best odds. I think after Washington, I think they're tied. So I think the Bulls will be in the top 7 at least. I think I'll use that prediction. I'll say they'll be in the top 10. Maybe the top 7, I would say. I don't think they're going to get the number 1 pick. I think I could see Indiana getting it because we're with Halliburton. Hopefully we'll be back next year. Hopefully recover from that Achilles injury. Maybe Brooklyn, or could I see Utah? But I don't see Utah doing that. I mean, Sacramento maybe. But look, it's so hard to predict. I mean, we'll talk about the NHL draft, a lottery in a second. The Blackhawks, we saw what happened there on Tuesday, folks. They were supposed to get the number. They were supposed to be in the top 2. Unfortunately, they ended up getting 4, and Toronto, of all teams, got the number 1 pick. The NHL draft, I tell you. But yeah, back to the NBA draft lottery here. But yeah, I think I could see either Indiana, maybe Washington, and maybe Sacramento. I think one of those teams will get the number 1 pick. I feel like, but I think the Bulls will be up there. I think the Bulls will definitely be in the top 10, if not the top 7 or 8.
I'll say the Bulls will have their first round. I know they have 2 first-round picks, but as far as this draft lottery, I think the Bulls with their first-round pick, they'll select at number 9. And I'll stick my neck out there. I'll say Washington will get that number 1 pick. We talk about this class being a deep draft class with DJ DeBansa. There is a cuff from Arkansas. I know you have Keaton Wagler. He'll probably get picked late in the first round, early second round from the University of Illinois. It's going to be a deep class, and I want to see how going back to relating back to the Chicago Bulls. Bryson Graham, what type of head? You'll have a plethora of talent deep, especially in this first round. Will you trade up with that other first round pick? You still have a bunch. It's going to be a deep class, especially for wing players, and we'll see what the prototype player is going to be for Chicago. I would like to say DJ DeBansa will come to the Bulls, but the Bulls, I think, will be too far back to get him. I think Darius LeCouf could be there if the Bulls pick between 7 and 10-ish range. But as we said for the last few years, LaKeena, the Bulls need scorers, but they definitely need shooters, first of all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does because the NBA draft will be on June 23rd and June 24th, Tuesday and Wednesday of next month. So I'm sure he's going to want to have a GM and a coach in place by then. So yeah, I think that'll be it's not urgency, but I'm sure you get about 6 or 7 weeks before the draft. So I know you're going to want to, I'm sure he'll probably get through. I'm sure he's already working the phones as we speak. So like I said, AJ DeBansa, I mean, I think he's supposed to go to the top 3, so I don't think he's going to be there for the Bulls if they end up, being at 8 or 9 as they're slated to be. So, like I said, I think it's going to be interesting. We've seen all weird, wonky things happening in the draft lottery, so I think could the Bulls, sneak up there and get in the top 5 spot? I doubt it, but, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Like I said, with Tony Kukoc being there, look, he brought a little bit of luck for the Bulls, all these years, so why not have it in the draft? So, going to be interesting to see what happens in that draft lottery coming up on Sunday.
And I think the draft combine is here in Chicago, I think next week or the week after. I think the week after we'll check on that, but we're not too far away from that. Hopefully the Bulls will have a coach in place around or after that time because, like you say, it's about 7 weeks away for the NBA draft. So hopefully you get a new coach and you'll have a new coach and GM in place hopefully by then.
All right, our sports potpourri segment is coming up next. We do that hockey, of course. Could one Stanley Cup playoff series already be over with? And a lot of NFL, both on and off the field, first-round draft picks are signing their contracts. And we finally got a date for the NFL schedule release. And also a couple of games already have been posted. And no Triple Crown winner in horse race. Yeah, I'll say no Triple Crown winner horse racing, it looks like. And a lot of other stuff as well. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago Sports Potpourri Summit coming up right after this.
Poof.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to the Friday Funk edition of Second City. It is me, LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
This is our last break of the show for today and for the weekend on Sports Potpourri segment. So if you have any last-minute questions or comments for us, you can definitely hit us up, not now, but right now, at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Let's do that hockey sit in NHL playoffs. Got the conference semifinals going on right now. And, well, could one series already be on the brink of being over with? Well,
yes.
Well, yeah. Well, that answers you. Well, now I would go out to next one. No, I'm kidding. The Hurricanes beat Philadelphia 4-1. They take a commanding 3-0 lead in that series. Jordan Stahl had a power play goal with about 2.5 minutes before the end of the first period. That kind of started the trend there, and it was all Hurricanes. Now Trevor Zegras did tie for Philly, but after that it was basically all Carolina. Jalen Sheffield scored a shorthanded goal, and Shekanoff for the Hurricanes had a power play goal, and that was really all she wrote there. 18 saves for Frederick Anderson. He's been just been staying on his head, as they say, for the Hurricanes, and they're now 7-0 in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, your Carolina Hurricanes, as we said before the start of this series, that it was going to be a contraction of styles. We know that the Flyers can score and they can get up and down the ice, but defense is what wins championships. As the old saying goes, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. Carolina, they don't have any big names, any household names, but they play the game of hockey the way it's supposed to be played. When they want to clamp down you defensively, they do it. As you mentioned, they did it last night. Special teams has been the story of this series. Philadelphia really can't get over that hump when Carolina is really focused defensively, and that's what we've seen so far in this series. So can it be done? Come back from 3-0 to win a series? Of course. Remember, the Philadelphia Flyers did it 16 years ago exactly against the Boston Bruins in 2010. Of course, they lost to the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup final, but it can be done, but I don't see it in this series. Maybe Philadelphia will win a game just to save their season, but Carolina's the better team here. They've shown that, obviously, with the 3-0 series lead. Whenever they win Game 4, they're going to go on easily to the Eastern Conference Final.
We saw Rick talking afterwards. He wanted to tear out his hair, but he doesn't have any. He's bald, so he wasn't very happy after that game. It's true though. It's true. I mean, he wasn't very happy after that game last night, and we'll see if I think Philly does win. I think tomorrow, to at least save face. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be all Carolina. But I'm sure Rob Vanderboer is going to make sure his guys don't get caught looking ahead. So we'll see what happens there. Now Montreal and Buffalo. Buffalo takes a 1-0 lead in that series, 4-2. And I think for me in this series, that we previewed a little bit on Monday, but Buffalo is one of those teams. Like I said, I mean, they could definitely beat you with a lot of speed, and that speed was very prevalent. They had a couple of power play goals from Bowen Byron and Ryan McLeod, and I think that's really what's going to be. I think Montreal really needs to kind of slow it down a little bit. I know Kirby Dach, of course, for Blackhawk, got a goal in the second period, but they couldn't really get anything else going. I'm talking about the Canadiens, so going to be very interesting on this series. But look, they're only up 1-0, and look, I think Montreal does bounce back.
Give credit to the Sabres, as we mentioned. They had a tough, hard-fought series against Boston, taking them out in 6. But I think Wednesday's game 1 was a feeling out of each other's different styles, as you mentioned, with Buffalo. Let's also, too, on the flip side, I know Canadians fans and players won't admit this publicly, but they came off a 7-game grind that went to the limit against Tampa Bay. We mentioned about those 2 overtime the first 2 wins of that series with Montreal came in overtime. So fatigue is playing a factor here for Montreal. I know this is not an excuse at this time of year, but I think that played a factor in game 1 here. I expect Montreal to come out with a better effort in game 2 tonight. I'm not saying they're not going to win, but I won't be surprised if the Canadiens did win tonight. So I think that, getting an extra day off here is going to help Montreal a lot. I expect a much better effort from them tonight in game 2.
Going to be very interesting there in that series. I think I believe that too. Said you tell that they were a little bit tired. They got it going there late, but it just didn't have the energy. So I'm sure I think they will tie the series tonight. But yeah, like I said, we'll get to that in a second here. But Anaheim, they tied their series against Vegas 3-1. And look, Joel Quenneville brings that experience to the Ducks. So I think he knows what it takes to win in the playoffs. We've seen it. We saw it here in Chicago. And look, I think Anaheim could be one of those teams where it's going to be very interesting to see how Vegas responds. Look, Anaheim, did what they wanted to do. They were able to split those games in Vegas. So now they're going to Anaheim. That arena is going to be rocking. And Vegas, look, it's your turn now.
Yeah, as I mentioned with the other series, that this is a contrasting styles. Both these teams can get up and down the ice, but Vegas plays more of a structured game. I'm not going to sit here and say, like I said on our last show, that this Anaheim Ducks team reminds me of that 2009 Blackhawks team that surprisingly got to the Western Conference Final before being swept by Detroit. But some of those elements are starting to remind me of that 2009 Blackhawks team. As you mentioned, Joe Corville has set the head there. They got that Carlson kid is definitely one of the young stars in the league and young stars on the team, and they can get by the blue liners of the Vegas Golden Knights easily when they're on that game. So we saw that the other night in game two. They took advantage of some broken opportunities suffered by the Golden Knights defensively. Vegas to get a game in Anaheim, they got to play their game. They got to set the tempo early, especially defensively, and make Anaheim play a dump and chase game. If they could do that, I think Vegas will come out there with the win. Can they win two at the Honda Center in Anaheim? Sure they can, but I think after game four, we'll be talking about a 2-2 series.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where we're going as well. Like I said, I think we have this. I think we have this series going 7. So I think that that's really probably on our way to it, that being the case. So we'll see what happens tonight down over there in Anaheim. Now, Colorado. Now this was a couple of days before, but Colorado did beat Minnesota, holding them off. They have a 2-0 lead going into that series. Nathan McKinnon, who as we thought, is now a finalist for a Hart Trophy, kind of like the NHL MVP, if you will. He had a couple of goals and assists there back in just outside Denver. And I think the Avalanche, you give Minnesota credit. They did score a goal, but they really couldn't do anything too much to slow down that offense of the Avs. And Landeskog, we've talked about him before. McKinnon. Yeah, that combo has been lights out this year for the Avs, and I think we're seeing that in this series against Minnesota.
Yeah, as we said on our last show, that Minnesota will play a different game in which they did, but it's just too much Colorado. You mentioned about Landeskog and McKinnon. If Minnesota can find a way to slow those two guys down, they'll get back in the series. I know the next two games will be at the XL Center, and I think Minnesota will at least grab one of those games. So if they can slow down those top scorers that we just mentioned, they have a great chance. And Minnesota has, I think they have a goalie game coming because they need to have a game where their starting goaltender will stand on his head, because if they don't, we may be talking about a sweep when we come back here next week.
Now, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Now, your schedule for this weekend in the NHL tonight. We got a game 2 here, Montreal and Buffalo. They'll be on TNT and HBO Max. We'll see if Montreal can even this series. A pivotal game 3 at the Honda Center in Anaheim, as Vegas and Anaheim. That game will also be on TNT, and True TV is streaming on HBO Max. So a couple of good ones tonight on TNT.
Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday at 5:00, Game 4 of the Carolina-Philadelphia series will take place from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. That's at 5:00 on TBS. TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. Carolina leads that best of 7 series, 3-0, followed by the Avalanche Wild from the state of Minnesota. That's tomorrow night at 8:00 on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. Colorado leads that best of 7 series we just mentioned, 2-0.
On Sunday, game 3 between Buffalo and Montreal as we head up to Montreal. That'll be at 6:00 on ESPN. Yes, I believe they will be in Montreal. Remember last year, all their games were remote. So, yes, they are going to be traveling to Montreal this year. Thank goodness. And, of course, you got Vegas and Anaheim also on ESPN. The late game at 8:30 at game 4. We'll see if this will be someone tying the series or someone trying to take a 3-1 lead. That game will also be on ESPN. And that is scheduled for this weekend in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you, kicking it for a Friday afternoon. This is our last show for the week. So if any last minute questions or comments put it in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. For those of you watching on the replay, shout out to the replay again. I forgot to give you guys a shout out earlier. If you're watching this on the replay, you still want to comment on any of the topics we can discuss, put it in the comment section. We'll read it on our next episode. LaKeena, let's go over to the NFL. 6 days from now, officially, the NFL schedule will be released. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this on Monday. We'll start the conversation here. But over the weekend, perhaps maybe doing our show, next episode coming up on Monday, we'll start to see some more leaks of the schedule from your favorite teams, including here in Chicago with the Bears. As we were talking about before we started recording, maybe the Bears will open up their season against Seattle on that first Sunday Night Football matchup of the year. We don't know, but listen to Mike Floyer, who does his weekly radio hit on the Score 104.3 here in Chicago. I believe it was on Rahimi Harris and Grody that expect the Bears to be all over the place, as he called it this year, for as far as the schedule is concerned. I'll say it right now, the Bears will be on 6 times this year as far as prime time.
Yeah, I'll say 5 because I think, look, you never know. Look, look, I think there's a good chance the Bears could regress. So I don't think they want to take that chance and want to have it to do the flex thing. So yeah, I'm thinking that maybe they'll I think I'll stick a serve. I'll say about 4 to 5 prime time games for the Bears this year. Could they open up against Seattle in prime time? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as far as the Bears. How many prime time games they're going to have this week is concerned.
I think they'll be on Monday Night Football a couple of times, Sunday Night Football twice, and I think Thursday Night Football a couple of times. So I think you'll see even out there as far as the prime time coverage. I think going to the rest of the NFL is going to be to see how the Kansas City Chiefs schedule will open up, especially for the first half of the year, assuming that Patrick Mahomes will start the year off as we presume. He has that torn ACL he suffered last December. Assuming that Patrick Mahomes will not be back until at least late October, early November, I want to see how the NFL plays as will the Kansas City Chiefs get a primetime game. I'm sure they'll get 1 or maybe 2 before the month of November, assuming that Patrick Mahomes will be back before that time. I know they picked up Justin Fields via trade from the New York Jets early in the offseason, but how many primetime games will the Chiefs get overall, and how many will they get before we presume the month of November when Patrick Mahomes is supposed to return?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like all different, we're hearing all different things. Yeah, he is going to be participating in OTAs, but I think Andy Reid kind of put a kibosh and I said, look, that doesn't mean that he's going to be ready by week 1. I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see what he does there. But I think I can see him doing 2, perhaps, probably 2, maybe to start off if the season, if they start their season with a good start now. If Mahomes does come back and they play well, going into that point, I mean, I could probably see him getting them some games flex and such. So I'll say maybe 3, maybe 3, depending. Like I said, it all depends on how what Mahomes does with the ACL injury recovery.
Yeah, because I think, like you said, I think the back end of their schedule, however it looks like for Kansas City, if Mahomes comes back in late October, early November. Yeah, a lot of, and like I said, if they're around 500 by the time Mahomes comes back, if he comes back, like I said, a lot of those games will get flexed because he's still one of the big faces in the National Football League. The Dallas Cowboys, LaKeena, I'm sure that's Roger Goodell calling your phone right now. How many primetime games you'll think they'll get, because they missed the playoffs again last year. I know everybody's sick of them. I know they weren't America's Game of the Week that much last year for Fox, but they still got their Thanksgiving Day game, which is tradition. They'll still get a Thursday night game following a week later. But do you see Fox overloading them with the Game of the Week? I don't. It kind of worked for them last year, not being Fox's America's Game of the Week every week last year. I still see that trend continuing this year.
Yeah, they'll probably get 2 games. I think it's going to be a 2 Game of the Week, I should say. So. Yeah, I think they will get 2. Like I said, same thing with the KC. If they end up having a good season, I can see that games, being flexed into later afternoon, perhaps some prime time. We'll see. But yeah, I think I'm keeping the number at 2 right now for the Cowboys. Now, the NFL's first ever regular season game in Australia will be featured on Netflix. Rams and the 49ers. That's what Andrew Marchand is saying. It'll be played on September 10th. On Netflix. Netflix is going to get some of the games. They're going to the Christmas games, of course, and I think I think also, yeah, the Christmas, those Christmas triple header, the Thanksgiving Eve games as well. So, yeah, looks like Netflix will get some of that. Those games have been flexed and such. So, yeah, so a lot of moving pieces here still with the NFL and their scheduling.
Yeah, the NFL's triple header for Christmas. The first 3 games, I believe, will be on Netflix, and the primetime game will be on Fox. But that Thanksgiving Eve game, LaKeena, I have one word for you: greed. Why are I know why they doing it because they want to tease folks for Thanksgiving Day and of course the Black. And with the Thanksgiving Eve game, there's a lot of people that are traveling during that time. Why would you put on a game that half the country is traveling? Make sense.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe it's going to be like one of the two of the worst teams or two of the near worst teams. I don't think the NFL is not crazy. I think they know that a lot of folks are going to be traveling, even though they can't watch on their phones or their devices. So I'm wondering that they're going to put like two of the worst teams in the league, playing that game. I could kind of see the NFL doing that just because like a throwaway, but we'll see.
And for this year, no Monday night doubleheaders, which I love.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I like it. Just have the one game of the week.
Yeah, it looks like I think like it's gonna be produced. They haven't officially yet, but I think like either Netflix or maybe I think YouTube is gonna produce those games, even though ESPN won't be a part of that. So yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what some of those games are gonna be like if you're pissed off like Kyle Shanahan will be when they have to the 49ers have to go down to Australia to open the season. But I think they will get 2 buys. I think both the Rams and the 49ers will get 2 buys. So with the early buy there. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, we're gonna be seeing something. So remember, the networks are gonna be doing all the networks are gonna be their upfronts next week. Next week's gonna be the upfronts out in New York City. So all the networks are gonna be doing that. So you gotta think, especially with ABC and ESPN. Remember, ABC has a Super Bowl this year out in Los Angeles. They're going to be promoting that like crazy. They're already doing it right now, but they're really going to be pushing it to their upfronts coming up this week. Also, Fox, they're going to showcase some games. CBS as well, and even NBC with their Thursday night games. So yeah, it's going to be a very busy time for the NFL next week, especially with the schedule is coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, like you said, don't be surprised. We'll talk about a couple of elite matchups on this show coming up on Monday. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See LaKeena kicking in here with you. We still have a few minutes left, LaKeena. We'll get to the sports media news in just a moment. But do you have any other nuggets, tidbits that you'd like to share with the rest of the class?
Well, the NCAA has officially now expanded to 76 teams. They made it official yesterday. And yeah, I think the way they're going to set it up, I think there's going to be adding like more at-large teams, and also even a couple of teams. I guess whoever comes in second, the smaller conference tournaments, they'll probably get a chance to play in the tournament. They're actually going to be adding another city in addition to Dayton, and as kind of like you get into the sports media part of it. There'll be $300 million in additional revenue over the last 6 years of that TV contract with Warner Bros. Discovery and CBS. That could go towards perhaps maybe going to keeping the NFL coverage on their network. So yeah, it's a bad idea. Yes, we're gonna watch, but just seems kind of silly. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there's another example of greed for you, LaKeena. I think that may potentially keep a potential elimination of Cinderella teams. And speaking of guys like Joel Lunardi and Jerry Palmer of CBS, we didn't have it. We really didn't have it this year as far as bubble teams. But you're going to keep the suspense out of bubble teams that you think deserve to make the tournament or not. I think that potential will eliminate it as well, and I don't like it.
Yeah, very bad idea, as I say. But yeah, like I said, it's better than 96. That's what the number that folks wanted. So I guess 76 is a nice compromise, I guess. But like I said, well, we'll see how this is formatted, and which other city. I'm sure it's probably going to be a West Coast city, I'm sure, since you already got Dayton.
Probably, yeah.
Probably going to be out the West Coast, or it's like Phoenix or Los Angeles or something like that.
I know that people have made the argument that expanding the college football player, which I was not a fan of, but I understood why they did it. I know that it's bringing in the casual fans like myself to watch these games, and the ratings were very good last year. But the NCAA tournament, I wasn't a fan of the 68 when that happened a few years ago, but now with 76, I think it just dilutes the tournament, especially the early rounds of it, because you're not going to get that Cinderella, in my opinion, and you're not going to get the suspense of the bubble teams making it in the tournament. Now with the 76, will it favor the major teams like your UICs or your Missouri Valley conferences or some of the other smaller conferences? Will they have an advantage with those with those 8 teams now being added? We shall see, but right now it doesn't look like it.
Ay, ay, ay. Oh gosh, gotta love the old corporate greed of the NCAA. So yeah. Well, like I said, we'll
With
see
no
what happens.
leadership.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a whole different conversation there.
Yeah.
Now going into the sports media news and such, but we talked about it last week that Russell Wilson, of course, is in deep talks with CBS to join their NFL Today coverage. But he also now has we talked about this too, that he also has a offer from the Jets. So if you're Russell Wilson, what do you do? What to do? Do you go to the Jets where you probably won't be contending this year? Or do you go to the sure thing over at CBS?
Go to the sure thing over CBS, because what happened with the Giants last year was an aberration. He had his moments, but we all knew that Jackson Dart was sitting behind him, and once he did bad, former head coach now Brian Daboll pulled him, put in Jackson Dart. That was the right decision for that franchise to move forward. And with the Jets, I don't think you will probably play even 3 games. So take the sure route, get your life after football career started, and take that job with CBS.
And I'm sure he's going to get a nice little moolah here at CBS. So I think the money won't be an issue for Russell Wilson. So he'll either decision he makes, he'll be just fine.
Yep. Sticking with the sports media news, the main story which I think we mentioned it a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, on our last show. We talked about it before we hit that record button today. The Los Angeles market will now have 3 sports radio stations. The newest one will be 97.1. The Fan. It will debut on Monday, and here's their lineup. And this will be all local during the daytime. From 6 to 10 a.m. This is all West Coast times, folks. Derek Fisher and Cody Decker, if that name sounds familiar, former minor league player. He is a frequent guest on now 104.3 The Score here in Chicago. They'll be their morning show, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is all West Coast time, folks. Brock and Alex is Brock Vereen, former NFL player, and Alex Curry. Remember, she used to do Fox Sports Radio recently, and she was recently before then she was the LA Angels field reporter. They'll do the midday show, and of course the afternoon show will have Doug McClain and Bill Ryder. He used to be with the now defunct CBS Sports Radio. So LaKeena, I know this the 97.1 used to be a news talk station. Now that format has been flipped. We talked about this before we hit record. You still have ESPN 710 LA. They have the Lakers, I believe, USC football, and the national games with the NBA and MLB. Of course, you have AM 570 LA Sports. That's a Fox Sports Radio affiliate. Even though they have between 6 hours of local programming daily, all their weekend programs, Clippers, UCLA, Bruins, football and basketball, national stuff as well. So, LaKeena, do you think a third sports station, especially during the daytime, will work in Los Angeles? Because I'm not from there, but we besides keeping up what's going on here in Chicago, we keep up what's going on across the country as well. So now we have a third radio station in LA. Do you think this will work? And if it does, do you think it will open up third sports radio stations in cities like Chicago, New York, and Boston and Philadelphia?
Yeah, this was like I said, this used to be a drive station, 97.1. Now it's going to be all sports, and I think this is a good idea. Look, I think people want options. I don't know how it will work, in a city like Los Angeles, but I think having these familiar names, a lot of these folks are from the Los Angeles area or played in the Los Angeles area, so I think are well known, radio folks, and TV people. So yeah, I think this could work. But they got to be on YouTube, though. They better get a YouTube page because as we're seeing here in Chicago with both our sports radio stations here in Chicago with the 670 the score and of course ESPN Chicago. YouTube is really what's keeping them going. So yeah, hopefully they got a YouTube page coming up soon. But yeah, I think this is a good monopoly here. I think folks need and want options, especially some of these bigger cities. So yeah, we'll see. I know here in Chicago they tried with the game years ago, it didn't work. Mm-hmm. So maybe if this becomes successful, I think this could open the door for other sports radio station here in Chicago, maybe even another one in New York City. So yeah, and even some of the bigger cities like your Houston's, your a few other big cities like Philadelphia or places like that. So we'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the broadcast date will be Monday, May 11th for 97.1 for the Fan in Los Angeles. I believe they are under the Odyssey umbrella, and their national programming will be under the Westwood One Sports radio network. So I know we had a good buddy, a former Chicago sports radio giant, George Hoffman, on this show a few years ago, and you asked him the question, could a third sports radio station work here in Chicago? He said no, and now with the advent of YouTube, like we're doing here in social media and podcasts, not just podcasts that you can listen to, but you can watch on YouTube, that definitely has changed the game. So, and being on a quote unquote FM station doesn't really matter, because especially with these newer cars being made now, AM is kind of gone by the wayside and everything is digital now, and you can listen to your podcast via your phone that's connected to your car. So basically, I'm not going to say AM is dead, but most of these newest cars, from what I understand, that they really don't showcase AM radio like that in your cars like we were growing up anymore.
Gonna be very interesting to see. Hopefully it does well. Good luck to the folks there. We'll see what happens. It's gonna be interesting to see if they can kind of get it going here. Now let's see what else here. Let's see. Now Golden Temple, of course, the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Well, we're not gonna have a Triple Crown winner this year. Cherie Duveau posted on social media that unfortunately, with the Preakness coming up this weekend, he's not gonna be a part of the Golden Tempo. We know the Preakness is a very short track, short race, so it doesn't really bode well for him. He's more of a long, mid-level long running track horse. So unfortunately, no Triple Crown winner this year. I know the ratings were very high last weekend, but since he's not going to be going for the Triple Crown, I don't see it being very high. So,
yeah, I'm sure they'll get some decent ratings for it. But like you said, with the threat of the Triple Crown gone, we'll see what kind of numbers that they'll get and what that race will get.
All right, so some breaking news in the NFL. Going back to the NFL, this is not schedule related, but also contract related. Breece Hall has signed a new long-term deal with the Jets. It's 3 years and $45.75 million, with $15 million, just a little over $15 million of that guaranteed. So yeah, there were some rumors that this is the last year of his rookie contract. I know his injuries history has not been very good, but he's still been very productive. So a nice contract signing for Mr. Hall.
Yeah, I had him on my fantasy team a couple years ago when I last played fantasy football. He was injured for me. He was no good. He's still a good talent, but he's just, like you say, his problem is health. So hopefully he can stay healthy for this upcoming year. All
right, a couple of other signings. Look, the rookie signings are coming fast and furious. Jeremiah Love and the Cardinals they've agreed with this rookie deal, as well as Ruben Bain Jr. with Tampa Bay. And I think Washington has all their draft picks all signed up. So it's coming up fast and furious as rookie OTAs is starting this weekend for a lot of these teams.
Yep, and our time is up right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Sid. It's LaKeena. We give you all in the world of sports, and we thank each and every one of you for joining us here today. So enjoy the sports, enjoy everything else in between, with the playoffs going on both in the hockey and the basketball and everything else in between. LaKeena, take us home.
You follow McGee McGee on the Twitter, execute us again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, at CK80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
All right, and of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels. You can catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports. The Smoke Fellas, I know they're going to have a lot to say about the Bulls tomorrow,
Yes.
so you guys make sure you guys check that out. Of course, anytime, anywhere, you can catch it right here on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, so enjoy the playoffs, enjoy the baseball, the Preakness coming up, and also all the other great sports. I know baseball, college softball, they got their tournaments going. So we'll keep you guys updated on all of that stuff too as well, and also we'll keep you guys updated on any schedule releases. I'm sure they'll be dropped over the weekend. I'm sure there's gonna be a few, so we'll keep you guys updated there. So for Sid, I'm LaKeena. Oh, this Sid's over here. I'm right here. This has been Second City Sports Talk Sports Show Chicago. We'll see you guys on Monday.
Go Sox! Holla!